Hello, everybody, and welcome to what is going to be a fantastic half-an-hour case study with regards to a project that Rob, who we will hear from in a second, is making a reality in South America. I'm so excited because as somebody who's grown up within the sector, starting out as an exploration geologist, I've really always been in awe of the beauty of the landscapes in which we work. And I think, Rob, what you're bringing to the table not only showcases that beauty, but perhaps even enhances it as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I can introduce you to the fantastic Rob McEwen. Rob, would you like to introduce yourself? So, who are you?
I'm a Canadian. I grew up in the financial industry for my first 18 years, managing funds, doing research, controlling a Toronto Stock Exchange member firm. And then I had followed the natural resource sector very closely, research and portfolio management in that area. And one day, after meeting many people in the industry, I decided I wanted to jump into it as well and see if I could get into the jet stream. I built a company called Goldcorp, and we went from 50 million to 8 billion market cap, and we were one of the lowest cost gold producers in the world. And then I decided, well, let's see if we could do it again. And I cobbled together a number of junior exploration companies with dreams. And that created a company called McEwen Mining. One of our assets is a very large copper deposit in Argentina that I've been associated with since about 2007. It's considered the 8th largest undeveloped copper deposit in the world, and when we looked to developing it, I thought, well, what's the biggest problem the mining industry is facing? And it's not really capital, and it's not finding the resources, it's getting the acceptance by the community and social license. And so how do you change that? Because mining has a very bad reputation, and since one's a very small child up to through adulthood, we're told that mining is detrimental to the environment. And that's true when you look at the past. And unfortunately, most people have their perceptions rooted in the past, and they don't see what has happened today in the mining industry, where it's a much better steward of the environment, and they're very good, clear examples of reclamation. And we have to tell that story over and over. So looking at this copper project we're looking to bring into production, I said, well, we have to shock the market so that someone looking at it for the first time goes, I didn't think mining was like that at all. I thought it was. So we're looking at a mine that will use less than a quarter of the water of a comparable size copper mine. It will be emitting 1/10 the carbon, will be carbon neutral by 2038, won't have a tailings dam to threaten downstream communities. All of the fleet will be electric, and all of our source of electricity will be from renewable sources, wind, solar, hydro. And we're trying to create something that's beautiful on the landscape. We're going to be digging a big hole, so forget about that for a moment. But the accommodation and the sites will be beautiful, they'll be restful, and it's attracting talent. One of the big tragedies of this perception that mining is bad is that very few people today are going through schools of geology, mine engineering, and anything related to mining, because of what they've been told since they were very young. And we have to change that, because we're looking at a situation where we're trying to get an energy transition to protect the climate, but the realization is that we need more metals today. And it's not going to come from recycling, and it's not going to come from the supply. There's a big deficit or gap between supply and demand. So we need more acceptance by the public that we're going to have to build more mines. And as we all know, sitting in this room and in our life today, without the minerals coming out of the ground, we don't have modern civilization. And most people who came here today would not have been able to get here today because they wouldn't have been able to get in a car, a train, a boat, a plane. So we have to help educate the world that, one, change their perceptions and get more people speaking and showing what the future could look like. So 2+ years ago, I thought, well, let's bring an architect in. And there's a school of architecture named the McEwen School of Architecture in northern Canada. And they teach in French, English, and have Indigenous elders imparting philosophy. So there's an advisory board, and on this advisory board is a gentleman I met, Jason McLennan. He has a firm, McLennan Design, that was bought by Perkin Wills, which is the second largest architectural firm in the US. And I said, Jason, how about you come and sit down with my engineers, my consultants, and management team and talk about how we can transform and redesign, and redefine mining. And so I'd like to show a video that does that.
Yeah, I think you have given us this most amazing picture in our heads. For me, I'm thinking, what does it really look like? Prove it. Show me what this amazing architect has put together when he was invited to say, take a look at redesigning, reimagining what mining could look like. So if we could tee up the video now, that would be fantastic. So let's take a look at what this vision might be.
Just over 5 minutes long.
Excellent.
Sorry I don't have any popcorn for you, but you'll enjoy it.
McEwen Copper is planning the world's first regenerative copper mine
we need a little more
in Argentina. It goes without saying that we need to transform industry to provide us with the materials we need for a renewable society, but without the historic legacy of environmental damage.
But are they wearing headphones?
Copper is one resource that will only grow in importance as we replace fossil fuels with a decarbonized world. Electric cars, wind turbines, batteries, solar panels, and the computers that power everything all require copper. And that copper needs to be green copper, carbon neutral and ecologically responsible. When we started the project, we began by drafting a set of principles for the project that would guide the team in its decision-making and approach. We did this work informed by the place itself. The Andes are an incredibly beautiful and sensitive ecosystem, so we knew it was our duty to be stewards of this place, protecting habitat, glaciers, water, and life itself, while at the same time getting the copper resources that we need. So we've been thinking carefully about the future first and our eventual legacy. We then focused on the people, the miners, and the community itself. And we've been working to create a new kind of experience for people that live in San Juan and the surroundings. Over the life of mine, over 1,000 high-quality local jobs will be created. And these will be jobs unlike any others in the industry. We think people will covet working for McEwen Copper because not only do we focus on safety, but also on dignity and livability, creating a mining facility that is an oasis in the sky. Here is our vision for the mine camp of the future. Beautiful, inspiring, and bold. A biosphere of health and life. After a long day of work, our people will return to a place completely powered by the sun and creating ideal conditions for rest, sleep, recuperation, and the daily needs of miners. Imagine a place that grows its own food, collects and treats its own water, and generates energy without emissions on a giant solar super roof. We are placing specific emphasis on indoor air quality, acoustics, and stress reduction with a focus on social justice, equity, and even beauty within a mine setting. This will be a place to live and thrive while earning a living. We're designing an ecological water treatment valley that not only completely protects downstream water quality, but allows for the creation of new habitat and the enhancement of Vegas. Partnerships with local universities and scientists will see new advances in natural phytoremediation, water treatment, and ecological testing to ensure that water is always pure and healthy. Our entire mine operation will be powered by on-site and off-site solar farms, generating all electricity without carbon emissions. Wherever possible, conveyors and fleet facilities will be electrified and plugged into this network of clean energy with batteries instead of diesel for backup generation. At Los Azules, we are not building a mill. Instead, we are advancing heat bleaching techniques to extract metals chemically and in a completely closed-loop process with radical reductions in energy and water requirements as a result. And finally, a state-of-the-art, renewably powered electrowinning facility will produce pure copper, so that from the pit to the product, our investors and customers know that sustainability informed every single step, and they can count on that for their own ESG goal setting. Our planning process continues, and we look forward to sharing more innovations as we develop this amazing project further. At McEwen Copper, we are striving to deliver the world's greenest supply of copper in the world's first regenerative copper mine.
So you like it? All
Yes,
right.
please. Does anybody want to go and stay there? Yeah, I mean, I think having lived and worked on some, as they'd say in Australia, pretty ordinary mining camps like that is amazing what you're envisaging there. Now, did this come from you, or did this come from the architect? Where did this dream come from?
I approached him and I said, we have to change the scenario. We have to change the perception to gain acceptance. So let's change it. And he'd never worked on a mining project before.
Yeah.
He's built a lot of high-tech buildings that are sustainable. So he embraced this as a wonderful challenge. And he came up with some great ideas, and the buildings that will be around the mine will be complementing this.
And so from an engineering perspective, so what you've got here is actually, often when you're building a house, for example, the architect has all these amazing ideas, and then those pesky engineers and builders come along and say, no, but that's just not going to work. So from the engineering, from the science angle, does it stack up?
Engineering's no problem.
Okay.
The biggest objection will be what's it going to cost? This is going to cost more than your standard box of accommodation. There's probably about $200 million extra in here. But you look at it and say, you could spend 200 or more exploring a property and getting it ready to go in production, and then the community shuts it down. And so that's lost. And I think there's an opportunity, as I said earlier on, to work on changing the public perception. And this is but one model that the mining industry could look at and say, we need to embrace this concept. We need to change the impression that's been so deeply embedded in the psychology of everybody from the day they started in kindergarten. We need metals if we want to allow the modern civilization to go ahead. But we have to bring more mines on to do that, because there's not enough material on surface to recycle, and there's not enough being produced right now to meet the projected demands. So you have to change some impressions, and that's a big job. But I think the industry has become much more responsible with respect to the environment, and there's some very vivid illustrations of reclamation. And I can think of one in Canada There's a town called Sudbury. There's a big base nickel mine there, and they had a smelter, and the fumes that came out of that were acidic and just it denuded the countryside to the point that NASA, when it was testing its lunar rover, chose to take it to Sudbury to go around Sudbury to see if it would work on the moon. Well, subsequent to that, in the last 30 years, it's all been reclaimed, and what was barren moonscape equivalent is now a lovely forest. So that is possible, but we have to get more of those images out there. We also need governments to embrace mining, and that was so refreshing at this conference. It's the first time I've ever seen government saying, we want mining, in a very, very forceful way, and supporting it. So they're just early on recognizing that we need metals, and we just have to change the perception. It's like a coin. There are two sides to it, and we've only really told one side today.
So with regards to government, how long have you been working on this project so far, knowing that governments tend to change on quite a regular basis? We don't need to go deep into what's been happening in Argentina, but it hasn't been the most stable of environments over the last few years.
Oh, it has a long history of just going through big, big cycles.
Yeah.
Populist governments, handing out small amounts of money and giving more vacations to buy the vote and destroying their currencies. They have a new president in. He's, a new breeze coming through. He's initiated a lot of legislation that is designed to encourage large foreign investment. And I think if he stays in there for a while, we've already seen some large companies come in. BHP did a deal with Lundin Mining in the same province where this deposit is for $4.5 billion. Rio Tinto came in, bought into a lithium producer for $6.7 billion. So that legislation is attracting capital right now.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't understand is the economic multiplier of the mining industry is multiples greater than the service sector. So there's all sorts of secondary and tertiary industries that come out of that.
Absolutely. So let's lean into the capital for a second here. So you mentioned that to build this beautiful oasis in the sky, I think as you mentioned in the video, would cost a mere 200 million or so more than it might usually cost.
So what do you think it costs?
Well, yeah, exactly. So how much money do you need to make this happen?
We've done a preliminary economic assessment, which isn't the final number. We'll have a feasibility study completed at the end of April of this year. But we're looking at $2.5 billion, probably a little bit more because there's been inflation since we did the study. It's a low-cost project. It's long life. Costs are projected at $1.07 a pound, C1. Copper is just over $4, so 75% gross margin in there. All-in sustaining cost about $1.64. So there's quite a bit of room. But so, yes, the price of taking away some of the perception. We looked at first at putting in a conventional copper mine that would produce a concentrate. And when you produce a concentrate, you have tailings. And the ultimate height of the tailings dam would have been 300 meters. And you're going, let me think, we're in a valley, in a seismically active area, at the headwaters of a tributary that leads into the main river that goes to the capital city. This is a bad idea. I mean, it's just threatening communities, potential threat downstream that tailings dam breaks. So let's get rid of that, and let's go for a heap leach process, which is a process that's time tested. It uses a whole lot less water, it uses a lot less capital. You sacrifice some recoveries, so you're not getting as much value out of the metal, but you could reprocess that at a later date. But we're talking 27-year life, 400 million pounds of copper per annum, and that's only mining 40% of what we've defined by our drilling. And then 3 kilometers away, over a ridge, we're finding another porphyry system, and I can dream about it that it's another Los Azules, but we have to drill it before I can make that type of statement.
Don't believe everything the geologists tell you before they go and take a proper look. I say, speaking as a geologist originally. But in terms of copper in that particular region, of course, as we know, it's a very, very good place.
Very prolific.
Exactly.
All along the spine of the Andes.
Yeah.
Copper in Chile is their mainstay.
Yeah.
So it stands to reason there's quite a bit. And there are some large deposits just north of us is what I mentioned, BHP coming into Lundin Mining. Just south of us is Glencore's El Pachon, and then there are a couple of others. So prolific area. Can you do it right? Can you respect the environment? I mean, it's really quite a beautiful setting in a stark way.
Yeah.
Every time I go there, I have my camera, my phone taking pictures. And I said, did I take a picture the last time I was here? But you just have these mountains that they're cascading down the side, or these pastel colors, and at night the stars, they're within, feels like you can touch them at night. Skies are clear and beautiful. So you don't want to disturb it. And we're looking at building a hotel there as well, because I think you want to be as transparent as possible about what you're doing. And a hotel, there's some Inca trails not too far away. There's all sorts of ecotourism, and then we've looked at what happens when we close this. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at the activities and the uses of the facility for that purpose, so that there's an ongoing economic engine. It won't be as large as a mine, but it could be. I mean, you look at the ski resorts in the United States and elsewhere in the world, the cost of real estate, say at Aspen or at Vail, is quite large, mm-hmm. probably generating more than the mines did when they were there. But they brought in the power, the roads, the water.
Yeah. So I guess what you're doing here is you are respecting that beauty, respecting that landscape and the culture that
Yes.
has been there for a very long period of time, and actually saying, well, that is at the heart of what happens after we've dug the copper out of the
That's
ground. Right. Now that, as a method, as a dream, is something that many of us across the sector have been talking about for a long time, but no one's managed to make it happen. Now, Rob, there's one thing that's unique about you, I suspect, in this room, is that hands up if anybody else has built an $8 billion company. No, not me, but you have. So what else are you bringing that actually makes us believe that this is going to be real?
Well, I'm not putting $8 billion on the table, but I think it's just looking at mining in a different way.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm very much like you think of a bull charging a red flag when it's in the field. I came out of the investment industry into the mining industry, and what I found was, in the investment industry, if I had an investment that didn't do well, I'd just sell it. It's gone. The problem's gone. In the mining industry, it's like stepping into a vat of quick-drying cement, and you just can't move that quickly. So when someone says, we've always done it that way, that's like a red flag, and I'm the bull in the field. I will not tolerate that. You have to look at alternatives. We did something, I built, the company you mentioned was Gold Corp, and we were a gold producer. And at one point, we took all of our geological data, threw it up on the web, and asked the world to tell us where we'd find the next 6 million ounces of gold in our mine in northern Ontario, Canada. And we gave away all of our geological data and a vast bibliography to help people assess where it might be. 1,500 people, 50 countries, and we found $3 billion worth of gold. But what was really surprising to me was the diversity of the possible solutions. There were people coming in with organic solutions to what is thought to be an inorganic problem. There was use of advanced mathematics. There was computer graphics that just blew me out of my chair when I opened it up the first time. I went, where'd this come from? I've never seen graphics like this. And it was just this cornucopia of ideas, and you walk away. I walked away from it and said, the biggest gold mine in the world is not in the ground. It's between everybody's ears. And how do you connect that? So you want to reach out for alternative ideas and look across industries and see what you can bring in to the problem statement. And the other is just, how do you define the problem? Most people in the industry are very much, their whole outlook is based on their training and their fundamental assumptions that are foundation stones in the way they approach mining. And so sometimes it's hard to get them to think outside of that. But you want to do that. You want to encourage that flexible thinking, lateral thinking.
So is it about almost giving people permission to think outside the box,
Yes.
creating that environment in which they can be unorthodox in those approaches that they might want to take? And then also as well, because you did mention that there are a myriad of other companies next door who are looking at building assets.
Yes.
Now, I suspect they don't have the same video as you do, but
I'll send them a copy.
is there a world in which BHP, Lundin, Glencore, etc., emulate what it is that you are beginning to create here? So it really does change the face of our sector.
You can see a number of companies, senior managements, looking and saying, how do we alter that perception? And make, it's not just words, but you have to have actions. You have to demonstrate you're doing it, rather than just talking about it.
So demonstrate what it is that we're actually talking about. Be that disruptor and unlock that gold mine that hopefully sits between all of our ears. Rob, I wish you all of the luck in the world. Thank you so much for bringing this along to the conference today. Rob McEwen, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.